Okay, so here's our problem. We're going to write a program that has a main function and an RS pyramid function. It's going to give us both the area and volume of a regular square pyramid. Taking two float values, print the surface area and volume to 3 decimal places. Okay, so let's start. This is how our output wants to look. So let's just start at the end and see. Let's see if we can hard code just to make sure that our math is right. So we're just going to try, I guess we'll try the hardest one and see if our math works out to be right. So here are our formulas. We have the surface area and the volume. And so we have A is the base and H is the height. Those are the only values we need. It's just going to get a little complicated. So A is going to be 3.25 and H is going to be 6. And we'll see if these numbers are what we end up with. All right, so A equals 3.25, H equals 6, and what do we have? So we have a power here, exponent, and we have the square root here. So for the power, we could just do A times A, but for the square root, it's going to be more complicated. So we're going to need the math library. So we'll import that. And with math, we get a bunch of math functions, cosine, sine, all that fun log stuff. And we also get math.pow, which is power. That's going to be 2 to the power of 3. So 2 to the third, which should give us 8. And also math.square root, which is going to give us the square root of 9 is 3. We'll use both of those. So we'll import math to use those. All right, so volume equals 1 divided by 3 times math.pow, because we're doing A to the power of 2 times H. Okay, and what is this? Surface area equals A times A plus math.square root of A. Oh, this is a power, so math.pow A to the second power plus 4 times math.pow H to the second power. And I think we need two closed things here. All right, so let's see what we get. Volume, print, surface area. Is that right? Let us hope. 50.967. Okay, cool. And 20. Wonder if we can get that. What do we do here? I think it's F string. So an F string is just an F with the quotation marks. And then our variables have squiggly brackets. And we have a little colon after. And then we tell it how many points after the decimal place. And it's a float. Hey, that worked. So that was a little weird way to say it, but can also do the surface area is. And to back it off, we don't need to have this part here. We could just say that, but that doesn't format it. So that last little bit, the little colon means format it like I'm going to tell you, with the decimal point having 3 afterwards, and it's a float. So if we wanted to have 3 places out front, it would be hopefully 3 and then the point and then the period. Hopefully that gives us a leading 0. Or it doesn't. So I guess you can't do that. There's some way to do it. Maybe that's just a string, because that's not really a float. wonder if you can do it too. No, guess that's just a string thing. Sorry about that. Yes? Ah, all right, let's not. But what we do want anyway is the 0.3f. So that's to the third place accuracy. All right, so let's get it. We have the surface area and we have the volume. Now we really just have to make the function or the functions. We have two functions that we're going for. We have a main function and an RS pyramid function. So this main function prompts the user and then passes RS pyramid the values that it gets. On the return, the main function should print the surface area. So when the values get returned, okay, the function takes two values, returns the two calculated values. Okay, so what we're going to return are two values. These two values, right? So we just need to calculate them and then return them. So we're going to do that first because we need this function for the second function. So how do we define a function? We just say def for define, the name of the function, rs pyramid, and then we need to pass it any values that we need. We may not need any values. You don't necessarily need a value to define a function, but we do in this case. We need we can call them whatever we want, but two float values, base edge and height. So let's call them meaningful words, base edge, and height. Okay, and now we need to calculate the surface area. Which one's first? Volume. So volume equals this one here, except we need to change it because we changed the name of the variables. So volume equals math.pow, and A is the base edge to the second times height, which is height. Okay? And surface area is, okay, A is base, and I'm just going off of here. I'm translating this into our words. Surface area equals base edge times base edge plus math.pow base edge 2 plus 4 times math.pow height 2. Would have been easier if I just called it A and H, but we didn't, so oh well. So we've calculated these values, but it's not going to be any use to us unless we return them. So we need to return. And returning nothing, returning one value, or returning two values are pretty similar. You just say what you want to return. You want to return two things, just put a comma. So now we'll have two values that are returned from the two values that we send. Hopefully, let's see if it works. Well, we'll define the main function in a second, but we now have this function, so we can use it and test it. So let's just call x so that we can look at it. X equal to rs pyramid, and then let's try 1, 1. Let's see if we get back the two values that we want for the first example. And this is going to be two values. So we have, oh, I guess we have them backwards. Whatever, that's fine. We can work with that. So This is it a tuple? I think it is. Type X, tuple, yes. So it's just a list that is strict order. You can't change it. You can't add to it or anything. It's just like a list that's stuck in place. But we can call an index, so we can ask for the 0th or the first item in that, which would be the 0.33. We can call for the second or the first index, which would be the second one, which I think is what we're going to do. But so it's working, the first part. I think we're happy so far. Now we need to do the main function, right? So let's see if we can find our way through this. So we're going to prompt for two values and then pass it to the pyramid and then print the values. Let's see if we can do this. I have faith in us. Def main. It doesn't do anything. We don't pass any values to main. It just says start our stuff. First thing is our first value, base edge input. I'll call it something different just to demonstrate that it doesn't have to be the same value. Like it doesn't have to be the name. The names don't need to be the same for what you call it at any point to then pass it. I could call it X and Y, but anyway, base edge input equals input. I'm thinking about it's going to be a float, so let's just make sure that we convert it to a float now. I think we'll be happier that way. It's going to cause an error if we put in a string, but I don't think this problem cares about that, so we're not going to care about that. So float input, enter base edge, and then height equals float input, enter height. Now we need to get these values, and I think we saw that we had them backwards. What is this? This is the surface area. That seems strange. Is that right? Now I'm confused. So we got the volume and then the surface area, and we turn the volume and the surface area, but the surface area comes out second. What am I doing wrong here? This is the volume, this is the volume, this is the volume, this is the surface area, this is the surface area. Okay, well, let's see what happens. I'm going to stick with what I believe should be. Which is volume comma surface area. And this is because we're getting two values back from this function, we're going to call the individual values. They're going to be sort of mapped to each other. So we can do this because we have two values. We can define it all in the same, and we pass it. We're going to pass the base edge input and the height. Because this returns two values, so this comes back with two values, and so it's going to assign the first value to volume and the second value to height. And now we can play with those values, so we can print, and we'll do an F string so that we can format it in the squiggly brackets. So we put an F in front of the double quotes, and then we'll say the surface area is surface is what we called it here. and we need to format it to 3 decimal places, so we'll put the colon. Could just put it like this, but they want it formatted, so colon zero point 0.3 for 3 decimal places. Call it a float, because that's what it is. End quotation mark and parenthesis. Let's try this. F the volume is volume, same thing, 0.3 F. Let's see if we mess this up. So this defined main, but we don't do anything unless we call main. So let's call main. Base edge is 1 and 1. How is this right? I feel like I had it backwards, but it seems to not be backwards now. Well, I guess I'll just not sleep tonight. 2.5, 2.5. Let's see if this works out. That looks right. Let's try it again with 3.25 and 6. That looks right too. I think we did it. All right. I'm going to stick around for a minute to figure this out. Why does my brain hurt? Return volume. This is the volume. This is the volume. Surface area. I think it's just because I calculated them in a backwards order. Is that it? Print the surface area and volume. Yeah, okay. I guess we should have, well, whatever, we can do what we want, but if I would have returned these in the right order, then this value would have come second instead of first. But since we assigned the values anyway, appropriately, we assigned volume first and returned it first, and surface area second and returned it second, it didn't matter that we had it backwards because we kept it backwards throughout. So that's going to do it. Let me know if you have other questions. Thanks. Bye.